This is the all-new 2022 Kia Sportage, and it sits in the middle of Kia's SUV lineup, just underneath the Sorento. But that's pretty much the only thing, apart from the performance, that's middle of the road about it. Now let's start with how it looks. This car is such a huge improvement over the previous model. It's taken on some of the design language seen in the larger Sorento, and I've got to be honest, I was never a fan of Kia's previous design language with the bulbous headlights and the tiger nose grille that you can still see on the Stinger and on the Nero. But here we've got a much larger front grille with more squared off looks, and those front driving lights especially that are boomerang shaped and the triangular shaped indicator lights. It is a really strong, aggressive looking design. From the side, the design is very clean and sleek. It's not incredibly busy, but it has a touch of Range Rover Evoque about it. It looks premium, especially in this jungle wood green color. The wheels are 19-inch machined alloys, and yeah, they look pretty good. At the back, Kia have fixed up one of my annoyances with the previous Sportage, and that was the indicators that are actually underneath the rear bumper, making them actually a little bit hard to see in traffic. Here they've incorporated them as part of an all-new rear light cluster design, and it looks much better. There is plenty of storage room for your bagage and luggage here in the Sportage, with a 543-litre space behind the powered tailgate, which you can make a lot bigger with the rear seats down. And underneath the flat floor is a full-size spare tyre. This GT-Line model gets a 1.6-litre four-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine with 132 kilowatts of power and 265 newton meters of torque, which is adequate, it's fine. But if you're serious about going off-road, or you just want a proper kick in the guts when you put your foot down, I'd think about the diesel model, because that has a similar power output but pretty much nearly double the amount of torque. Fuel consumption is okay at an average of 7.2 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle. It drives its power to all four wheels via a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, and the brake towing capacity is 1,650 kilograms, which is just okay. The interior of the Sportage beautifully matches the exterior. It is clean and contemporary. It's a really good looking design, and we just had a little bit of wheel slip there going around the corner in the wet. Not a good sign, but it is a fantastically well designed interior. I think it is almost one of the best you'll find in any new car, certainly at this price point. There's a good mixture of materials. We've got soft touch plastic with some stitching, and this wood that's actually not real, but it certainly looks and feels like the real thing. It feels properly premium in here. The first thing you notice in this interior are the twin 12.3-inch screens. The center console screen and the digital instrument cluster both look beautifully sharp with really good graphics and very nicely designed. The center console screen runs the usual Kia Hyundai software, which, as I've said many times before, is one of the best out there, especially for a mass market car. It just works really, really well. There's wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto available, but to be honest, the native system works so well, you don't really need to use them. The center console screen also comes with surround view monitoring with 3D, so you can actually get a 3D picture of the car, rotate it yourself around the screen so you can get a really clear image of where you're parking. Beneath that are the air vents, and underneath that is probably one of my favorite features of the interior, because when I first got into this car, I thought, that's strange, there's no shortcut buttons for the center console screen. Normally they have a row of buttons to allow you easy access to the radio, the media controls, the map and the navigation, and that doesn't seem to be here. All I've got is climate controls. And then I pushed this other button here, not knowing what it did, and suddenly all the buttons changed to those shortcut buttons, and even the functionality of these knobs changed. It's one of the best systems I've seen in any car recently. I was genuinely impressed. Underneath that, we've got a sliding door which feels really properly solid, covered in very nice piano black. That hides the wireless charging compartment for your phone. It's nice and big. We've got a couple of USBs there and a 12-volt outlet. Heating and cooling controls for the front seats, and then in place of a gear shifter, we've got a rotary dial. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of these, but they are starting to pop up in more and more cars. They're sort of the latest design trend. I won't be sad when it goes away. couple of cup holders that do feel a little bit plasticky, but they work well and they do what they do. And then we've got armrest with a good sized center console bin. Digital instrument cluster looks good. There's 3 or 4 display modes that are linked to whatever drive mode you're in, but you can actually select them separately and just leave them on whichever one you like best. You can control that through the center console screen. No maps, unfortunately, but you do get turn-by-turn directions from the nav. The steering wheel, pretty standard Kia unit. Not mad about this color though. It is kind of just a bit of a dull gray, but it's leather wrapped, has stitching, a couple of paddle shifters on it, and all the regular controls for the sound system and adaptive cruise control. The seats are perforated leather. They're heated and cooled with some artificial suede accents up here on top. They look really nice. I like the look of these seats. They're pretty comfortable too. Could do with a little bit more thigh support down low here. There's full electric adjustment for the driver and passenger. The GT-Line gets the full suite of safety gear, so we've got things like parking collision avoidance assist, blind spot collision avoidance assist. We've got cameras that monitor the blind spots and show you the image from the 2 cameras up here on the digital instrument cluster. The forward collision assist, which, like a lot of these systems, is a little overactive, so it does have a hard time sometimes telling the difference, particularly on a corner, as to whether or not you're heading towards a parked car or there's a car in front of you in traffic, and it will slam the brakes on quite suddenly, giving you a little bit of a heart attack. That's my only criticism with this system. You can actually switch it off, but they just need to be able to refine it a little more than what it is. The idea is right, the execution's just not quite there yet. Wow, it is raining really, really hard. No leaks through the panoramic sunroof, which is good. But the front end of the car does feel a little bit nervous, and I don't know whether that's because it's not properly balanced or there's not enough weight at the front, or maybe there's just a bit too much torque going to the front wheels. But it does feel just a little unsettled on corners. When you put your foot down, there is just a little bit of hesitation. It's not super quick off the mark. It sort of needs to spool up to about 2,000 RPM before you really feel anything happen. And that's true even in sport mode, which really only seems to hang onto the gears a bit longer and make a bit more noise. So I think in terms of how it looks, the Kia Sportage wins the compact SUV category. It is a really good looking car, certainly a lot more eye-catching than the RAV4 or the Subaru Forester. And at $54,000 for the Sportage GT-Line, Kia have done a remarkably good job of making this car feel a lot more premium than it perhaps actually is. There's a few cut corners here and there, but it all comes down to whether or not you're going to buy with your head or with your heart, because if you're going with your head, on paper, maybe the RAV4 might be a better value proposition, but if you're going with your heart, it's hard to go past the Sportage.